two transcriptions from the.
Y'all hold on, because I'm still going to be there, and all the other platforms, Facebook, YouTube, is still going to be on Blog Talk. Don't hang up if you plan on having a comment to say. But the point is that I'm stopping here because what comes after this is, okay, now you understand the importance of language. Okay, now which language? Okay, Imam gave us the language. What language? The language that took us out of the Nation of Islam and brought us into a new world, a world to be free and join the normal world and become a part of that competition. Okay, now Imam said, okay, now take this language and you can be ahead in the world as it exists right now. Take this language, meaning the language that it's pointing to. That's the Quran and the creation. Take that language, understand it right, translate it right, know how to photosynthesis, right? Know how to absorb it, and you will grow in a way like no others will grow. So I'm stopping at this point. But we need to understand the background and the power and the value of that decision, because when you make that decision, you are grabbing hold to the best of language. Language is powerful among human beings. Language rules human beings, masters of all masters. Language rules human beings. But what language rules all languages? What language rules all languages? The language of Allah. Where do we find the language of Allah? The Quran, literally, the creation, concretely, cosmologically, metaphysically, the language of God is being spoken by the creation. There's no language superior to that language. And if you learn how to absorb and be instructed by that language, you're hard to compete with. But also, it's not all about competition. It's also about cooperation and contribution and all that. And that's going to happen by the grace of Allah. So I thank you for your indulgence of a little extra time today.
Blog Talk, hold on. Or you can go over to, let me turn this down for a second. Blog Talk, I made a mistake in terms of the timing for the actual Blog Talk broadcast. If you stay on the line, you'll be good. But if you hang up, I don't think you can get back in to Blog Talk. Beyond that, we are currently live on Facebook, so you can go to Fahim Shoaib Facebook, Imam Fahim Shoaib Facebook, and also on YouTube Live, also for Fahim Shoaib. So, sorry about that. But again, like I said, if you as long as you don't hang up from the Blog Talk side, you should be good. But just in case something else, if they cut off before I finish, we'll still be over on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you. As soon as the song is done, we're going to get on with it, okay? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Sayyidina Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Dear brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, we're going to move on down the road. Alhamdulillah, I left this panel here. And again, thank you for joining us this morning for Quran Salat Institute, afternoon, wherever you may be. I left the panel, I left that, slide up because I want you to, take some time and read it. In fact, I'm gonna give you a quick second this way I would actually recommend you taking a screenshot if you have a way of making that a full screen for you and taking a screenshot of it, because while I didn't write that in there, this brother and sister is the master narrative for that movement that we are the outer edge of, those associated with Imam Mohammed, and we're the outer edge of that entire life of the people that we talked about. And since I'm going to get into it, I won't go further on that. Again, apologies. I forgot to set the time. So the default time is only 15 minutes for the Blog Talk broadcast. So I don't know what happened on the listening side, but I did see a number of people dropped out. So I don't know if it went blank or if they didn't know. So mashallah, all I can do is apologize on that. But let's get on with the lesson, so the clock won't catch us unawares. So, all right. So what we're doing, we're just gonna pick up right where we left off last week, and I'm going to use that plate as the basis for our conversation today. So, and the focus for today is the language and logic lessons from Imam Mohammed's school of thought. Right? I'm not going to debate in detail those things, but every frame of that brings up issues, etc. I'm not going to try to answer those issues today. I'm just going to. I have replies. I'm just saying I'm not going to spend that time. And I also want you to understand that there is always, with me, mashallah, Allahu alam, this is no boast, it's just a statement of what my motivations, intentions, and protocol is. I'm always trying to teach both the lesson, whatever the lesson is, but I'm also trying to teach methodology of Imam Mohammed's, or for Imam Mohammed's thinking, right? And so that's what I do. So you have the specific lesson, but then there's also the technical lesson in terms of, okay, and how do you do that? Those kinds of details. Allahu alam. And what I say, obviously, it's not going to be, that's not the only way to do, the only way to see, or what have you. There may be many ways to do it. I mean, let's go with a food analogy. I mean, how many different ways are there for preparing peach cobbler or gumbo or cornbread or pound cakes or cooking ribs? It's like, hey, you got different schools of thought. I'm thinking about, when I think about that barbecue, you got Kansas City barbecue, you got Texas barbecue, you got Louisiana barbecue. Yeah, it's like, hey. Okay, so in the same way, Imam Mohammed taught many people, and many people like myself, they are still on the mission that Imam Mohammed put them on for many of us 40 years ago. So let's move on. So that technical aspect of the lesson today is those who expect to represent the language, the logic, and that legacy of Imam Mohammed. This is a critical lesson for you, because if you can understand this particular expression of it, and I will say this is not the only expression of it, but let me give you a Quranic support. I don't have the verse in front of me, but it's one that's just so very familiar to us. It said, "Is Allah created you growing in the wombs of your mother through 3 veils of darkness." All right. I'm going to leave that right there. So I'm going to talk about this movement. The first darkness in the analogy, the first darkness was the experimental clinic designed to cause us to dysfunction in the vital areas of our lives. That was the first darkness, that darkness that made us Negro, right? And so that was the first death, okay? And therefore, that's what brings about or necessitated the first resurrection, right? So we're talking about language evolution, right? Which we used from Imam Mohammed's quote, December 1997, in his instruction to the Imams. He explained how the language changed and the emphasis changed over the years in what was called the Nation of Islam. And so what I've labeled here as the old language, it is also correlated to the first resurrection, as we call it, the first resurrection. And I have encapsulated, abstractly summarized what was the first resurrection. It was the movement from the caste system biblical mind. I think it's very important for us to grasp that idea. And if you haven't read Isabel Wilkerson's treatment called Caste, then you're missing something. You need to refine, get it on audiobooks, go through it. You need it for exposure, that exposure will give you a frame of reference that's critical and a point of view about you won't focus on quote unquote racism, and you won't focus on white supremacy in terms of how do I look at how do I read it. What is it actually? It's a caste system. And that caste system gave us a biblical mind. And the Honorable Elijah, and not in the best way, I say it's the caste system biblical mind. All those are adjectives. Caste system biblical mind. That's the mind that was given to the Negro. And consequently, when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, may Allah forgive his sins, forgive his shortcomings, and grant him entry into the paradise, we were told, and we adapted the fact that the graveyard of my people is the Bible. And so since that's where they were buried, that's where we had to go to resurrect them from. Okay, that was that part of the story. And what did it do? And how was it done? It was a movement from that caste system biblical mind into a new world. And that new world was the Nation of Islam mythology. The Nation of Islam mythology was a new sacred narrative in our view at that time, a new sacred narrative that was given to us to give us an entirely new universe. This is very much a big deal. I'll just mention the words so that you can have heard it, and when I get back to it, then you'll already be kind of predisposed. Oh yeah, he said isomorphism. It's a big deal. It's really connected with what we're talking here. So I just have to move on. So the point is that when you are given a new worldview, you're given a new world. When you're given a new worldview, you're given a new world. When you are given a new worldview, you are given a new world. The world that we had on the continent of Africa before we were taken, captured, and brought here as slaves and put into a closed system under an absolute master in an experimental clinic designed to cause us to dysfunction in the vital areas of our, we were given a new worldview. We were given a new mind, right? Okay, well, the movement has to be, you have to move, in order for you to move out of one worldview into another worldview, you need a new language to move in that. So we got a language different than the way that the Bible was read to us and the way that the way of life in this world, Jim Crow, etc. We were given a new worldview in the Nation of Islam, and it was fundamentally nested or rested upon Yaqub's myth. Yaqub's myth, that's the short version. Yaqub's myth, and all this that I'm speaking to you now, those of you familiar with the language that we use is abstract. Abstract. It's the truth without details. Okay, so this is an abstract. You're looking at one sheet, one page, one slide. That's an abstract. That's not the entire thesis written out. It's an abstract. All right. And so that first resurrection was a movement out of the caste system, biblical mind, into the Nation of Islam mythology. Okay, so that was the new womb. That became the new womb, or the next womb, a rebirth that was taking place by that process. All right, what comes after that? I'm labeling it in this conversation: updated, reconciled, new language. Updated, reconciled, new language. Abstract label that we have for it. Second resurrection. What is second resurrection? It was what the Imam did when he came to, by the grace of Allah, and when he was elevated as the leader of the Nation of Islam. Okay. It was what he did. And as we read, and we spent that time last week replaying a portion of it this morning, he went directly to the mission of language. And his language was what? What was his language? It was a language that deciphered and decoded the first resurrection language, right? So what the Nation of Islam said about the Bible, Imam Mohammed gave us another understanding about what was said by the Nation of Islam with regard to the Bible. What the Nation of Islam taught us in terms of the mythology, Imam Mohammed gave us a new understanding, interpretation of that mythology, right? And I say again, he did so without throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And so I say that he deciphered, because it was all symbols. It was all symbolic. It was all metaphorical. It was all abstract. But again, it was metaphorical. It was abstract because that was the way by which the knowledge was being transmitted, and we were told to learn how to put the language in its proper terms. Put the language in its proper terms. And Islam is mathematics. Mathematics is Islam, and you can prove it in no limit of time. All of that. It's all that's. That was all there in that, and we were just believing in it because it was serving some other kind of analgesic, let's call it, or an aesthetic role in our psyche at that. If you just gotta call it what it is, and alhamdulillah, we thank Allah for it. It was a shot we needed, and so mashallah, so the Imam, what he came and did, deciphered, decoded that language, both our treatments of the Bible and our treatment of the mythology of the Nation of Islam. Imam Mohammed created a bridge language, a language that was compatible to al-Islam. Now, during Imam Muhammad's first period, divine mind and all that other kind, whatever the language was at that time, it's like the rest of the world who hadn't been in that quarantine, the Muslim world, the rest of the Muslim world that hadn't been in that quarantine, well, they didn't need that. They didn't need that shot. And for them, no, it wouldn't necessarily be good for them. And so therefore, the rejection is understood from their perspective. But Imam Muhammad was doing a different operation upon a different group of people, and to look at and understand without going back over it all, look at and to understand the work and why this language was used versus that language, how he was transitioning us from one old language, from one old womb, from one worldview into a worldview, while at the same time seeking to preserve the good that has come through the evolution. I'm talking about 400-year evolution. Let's just use that. The 400-year evolution that was instantiated in what ultimately became, quote unquote, the Negro, and then what was preserved by the movement preceding him, Imam Mohammed, what was preserved in that process that could not destroy that work. Destroying that work by language anathematizing the whole thing, right? Saying like, throw it all out. No, you'll throw the baby out with the bathwater, because that was an operation that was designed to do something. Even short version, even the temples, right? The temples, as we're called. They weren't called mosques, they weren't called masjid, they were called temples. Tied also to tempo, right? Because the idea, and it's also tied to temples. The idea is to give us a new rhythm, to give us a new perspective, a new way of thinking about the world that we had come out. But more so when you broaden the lens and you look back at it, that is, I'm talking about at the time and the work of Imam Mohammed, when the scale and the vision that when you understand what was happening, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad actually said it. What was actually going on, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad actually said it. What did he say? He said, my job is not to teach you the religion. My job is to clean you up and take you to the door. There's one that's coming after me that will teach you the religion. So what's the analogy for what the Nation of Islam was as compared to what Imam Mohammed rahimahullah brought? It was wudu and ta'aleem. It was ta'aleem and wudu, when you put it like that. It's like we were being taught and we were being purified. We were being taught and we were being made ready for prayer. So there was no masjid. There was no place for sajda. We weren't even taught sajda. However, in 1959, I had one of those books, mashallah, and I know many of us can say the same. Man, I had one of those. The little prayer books that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad put out in 1959 was a description of how to make the prayer in the Orthodox way. But it was never established, but it was out there. And many of the sayings and many of the prayers that we made in the Nation of Islam were actually hadith of Prophet Muhammad, dua of Prophet Muhammad, and some part of them were actually Quran as well. But we were never taught. We were never taught that way at large. There were those who got it, but it was never the ethos. All right. So the first resurrection was really wudu. That's the short version. First resurrection was wudu. And then here comes Bilal. Alhamdulillah. Call to prayer is given. And now we start making prayer in the way. And we make Hajj in the way. And we do Ramadan in the way. And we pay Zakat in the way that Al-Islam had ordered. Alhamdulillah. Imam Muhammad did that through, through a change of the language, which changed the worldview. And that bridge language, that period of time, we had our quote unquote final Savior's Day of that order, 1980. Okay. And of that order, no debates today other than the ones that I bring up. Okay. And so the point is, the Imam said, now look, I did it. I spent like 5 years at that point. Then I know going beyond that, 10 years. At that point, it's like, okay, it's time to move to something else. We've done all that we needed to do in order to get our spiritual vision, our religious practice, to get that straight. Now it's time to advance ourselves in other ways, right? So So the Imam, in that he deciphered and decoded the first resurrection. I've already explained that first resurrection language, and created a bridge language that was compatible to Al-Islam to liberate the purified human potential of the followers who were ex-Negroes, okay, Negroes, first resurrection, quote unquote, FOI, say briefly, Black Muslim label that was adapted from C. Eric Lincoln and the like. It's not our label, but a meme that caught on. So the point is Negro, Black Muslim in that sense. Then here comes Imam Mohammed, decodes, deciphers that first resurrection language with a bridge language that was compatible to Islam, such that the Islam that was able to al-Islam that was able to be brought forth, which is actually the bringing forth of that nature that had been buried under all the things that a part of which the Nation of Islam cleared away. Imam Mohammed finished the purification process of the liberation of that original nature, which was coming back to the surface through the works and the wisdom inherent in the Nation of Islam mythology, strategy, and the like. And so now more of it's at the surface, it's ready, it's been prepared. Now Imam Mohammed makes the last move to set that purified human after the wudu, after the ta'aleem of the Nation of Islam, the restoration of us to that state of seeing ourselves as truly as the civilized man, right? Create a bridge language compatible to al-Islam to liberate the purified potential of the followers from the Nation of Islam. So there's a freedom that we still needed from the mythology of the Nation of Islam and the other strategies and the other functions that it served. And look, if you got the benefit of what it was there to do at its termination, which was signaled explicitly by the passing of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and it should not be lost on us that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad passed the day before Savior's Day, a time when all the people were going to be there who were going to be there. And at that time, Imam Mohammed steps forward, brand new to February 26, 1975, brand new to most of the people in the Nation of Islam from coast to coast. The people, of course, East Coast, people in Midwest, of course, people who with long histories known about Imam Mohammed, but for the rest of us in the West and other people more extended and away from number one, number two, the temple numbers. It's like this is our first meeting, Wallace D. Muhammad. But see, this is Allah's doing. I mean, hell, you just look at January 6th, January 6th, 2020, a day that will live in infamy. Also, was that this year? It was 2021. It's like, look at what happened then. Look at what happened there. Okay, what happened in the Nation of Islam when Imam Mohammed became the leader at that time? That's Allah's doing. All right, so the bottom line is that takes care of the second resurrection. So that potential was scoured, cleaned up by the Nation of Islam, made ready, believing in Allah and Muhammad, yes, in name from the beginning, but then as a part of the Imams, purification, continued finalizing of the purification during that period of time, so now we're ready to stand up and actually be Muslim. But the big and important distinction is that you're a Muslim not as a stepchild of somebody else. You're a Muslim not being adopted and adopted by someone else and adopting someone else's culture, adopting someone else's definitions of you, definitions of the world that you are you are from and in and going to, you finish the rest of that. The point, we're free. That's real. This is the real freedom. The real freedom. What the Nation of Islam, Imam Mohammed pointed out to us, and he had to tell us these things. It's like, for most of us, the majority, if we were honest, it's like we were just committed. We just had our conviction. I'm with it. I'm down. What are we doing? Where are we going? What's next? Boom. So here comes the Imam, and the Imam had to grow us into an understanding of what he had to debrief us, literally. This is what you've been through, not just in the Nation of Islam, but in history. He had to give us a reinterpretation of the whole history. And so, in terms of that, one thing that he said, I'm talking about not being somebody's stepchild, we're not sponsored into this religion, in this way of life. People, so the Imam, he said, the Nation of Islam gave us a sense of qualification without reference to credentials. Man, I'm going to say that again. It gave us a sense of qualification without reference to credentials. I think he said that a third time. In the Nation of Islam, when you came into the Nation of Islam, you got lesson number 1, lesson number 2, English lesson C1, actual facts, and don't have a problem book and a supreme wisdom. It's like, man, nobody in the world could tell us nothing. We got it from the God. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim wa alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. And so we were given through that a sense of qualification without reference to credential. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he was the model for that very statement. Self-taught in so many things, in business and grocery and leadership and all of that. It's like a sense of qualification without reference to credential. I don't have to go to University X, College Y. We love it. Imam Mohammed invited us to, education is sacred and all of that. Get the advanced degrees, get the knowledge, get the credentials. To get that, you qualified for that. So that's the point. Qualified means the right to be in the race. That's what it means. Are you qualified? Well, that question is actually asking, do you have a right to be in the race? Yeah. You got a right to be in a race. So what do you mean? Qualified. Oh, what kind of credential you got? I ain't got no credential. My nature, my Lord who created me, and the potential that he embedded and he endowed me with. That's my credential. That's it. But the Nation of Islam had to give us that. And I know you all have stories about Joe. The one comes to mind right now. There's a doctor. I won't mention his name. Brain surgeon, wallahi, brain surgeon. Well, Judge David said, hey, we can go with him as well. He's not a throwaway. I say it like that, but I'm just saying, it's like these are fish salesmen, paper salesmen, etc., who excelled to the higher, which was Imam Muhammad's promise, that we would excel into the higher halls of leadership and power and influence in the society, just by growing as Muslims, mashallah. And that has happened. But I'm thinking about one who's a brain surgeon who was a heroin addict. All right? Nation of Islam. And it wasn't like, oh, well, yeah, he was already in college and then he got hooked when he was up there. No, he wasn't nowhere near thinking about college. Heroin addict. Nation of Islam offered a heroin brain surgeon. Man, if you are anybody, take from you the honor, the dignity, the conviction to celebrate that and support that, I'm not going to cuss, but you cuss for me. you are a GD fool. And you deserve to be stripped of it. And you can take that however you want to take it. Because if you are the mind, what you talking about? Well, then you who I'm talking about. If you got that, you who I'm talking about. That's the problem. Let's move on, Fahim. All right, so where are we now in this freedom? See, because when you understand this background that I'm speaking to, when you understand this background, then I'm looking for analogies like, okay, you find a house, a house is, your people talk about flipping, right? People talk about flipping as a real estate term, right? So you find an old dilapidated, property, it's on the market, you buy it, and then you invest in whatever you have to do to bring it up to code, beautify it, improve it, make it habitable, and all that way, beyond habitable, make it nice. Okay, so now you did all that. Okay, now it's time for someone to come and live in that house. They come and they live in that, and living in that house, they build their life from that house. They build their life. So you go back and forth to the job, to the business, to the social, cultural, every other thing that you do. You have a house, but then you go out and do things, and then you come back home. That's your home, where you're at peace, you're at rest. All right, you have your pleasantness of home, right? Okay, well, this is what it was. We were the Negro, we were the broke down house. In fact, in the caste system, we were the mud seal for the society as such. Humanly speaking, we're broke down. Experimental clinic designed to cause us to dysfunction in the vital areas of our lives. All right, then you get the restoration. First, a simulation of that. That's what we had in the Nation of Islam. It was a simulation of, this is what it looks like when you actually act like civilized people. This is what will happen when you do this. The problem relative to that solution is that it was artificial relative to the nature of human progress. It was artificial. It was a strategy that had been used in the past. When I say used in the past, mythology. Let's put it like that. But the mythology that was there was not a natural mythology. It was a satirical mythology. Indeed, it's called a noble lie. This is not the only time that the Nation of Islam was the only time. That was a strategy that had been used years before. Even that label, the noble lie, didn't come from the Nation of Islam. It came from history and a strategy. And so we benefited, and another way you can say we were victims of it. It's khair and shar. Some people got the khair, and some people got the shar. MashaAllah. That was it happened. So the idea now, so that dilapidation, that crushing down, that experimental clinic, blah blah blah. Now, then the rehabilitation, the restoration, right? And the liberation of that potential that had been crushed and buried, etc. Now something happened to restore it, bring it back. So it's like that house. So it's like the individual becomes like that house that's been rehabilitated, literally and figuratively. It's house. Okay, now you have to live in the house, right? Living in the house now, human habitability, meaning that once you come back to your human form, you get reset in your human form. Now it's time for you to do the work that human beings do. You're back on the path. If you got it right, you're connected back. You're back on track, meaning you're back on the path to the human destiny. Somebody had taken you off of the path of the human destiny, and then someone created a situation whereby you could get back to the path for the human destiny. But now it's like getting on and put it like that. Literally, like we call them freeways out here. He said, well, you get on the freeway. Okay, so now it's time for you to get on the freeway. Your car is running again. You got more gas in it. Tires been changed. Everything's good. Now it's time for you to crank that thing up and get on the freeway, right? And when you get on the freeway, but now you get on there. I got a story to go getting on the freeway, but you get on there. It's like, ain't nobody waiting for you. Listen, ain't nobody waiting for you. You have to know the signs, know the signals, know how to drive. And you getting on that freeway, as people that's been on that freeway for 100 miles, and they have got a pace, and you looking for the merging traffic side. And some people say, "Man, I ain't slowing down for you. I ain't slowing down for you. You wait. You just gotta wait, right?" So, okay. So what the Imam has done is say, "Look, get on the freeway and go to the destiny that you're supposed to go with." Now, to use the vehicle metaphor, it's like the Imam has given us some fuel. By the grace of Allah, he has given us some fuel that's like that NOS, NOS, yeah. And it's not that that's the power of the purity of the revelation. Don't think it's some kind of synthetic thing, even though I use that analogy. No. If you can get the Quran unfiltered by somebody else's worldview, let's use this now. Phoenix, Arizona. Families drive into Phoenix, Arizona from Oakland, California with my mother, Rahimahullah. And so we drive, stopped, and we had to put gas in, had to put gas in the car, right? And I was much, when you hear the stories, obviously I was much younger than I am now. But in any case, so put gas. So I jump out to put the gas in the car. And just put it in there, close it up. We hit the road. We get down the road, and it's just a few miles down the road. This car starts smoking. Stopped. Trying to figure out what's wrong with it. When the roadside service people come, they check. Is that somebody put diesel fuel in the car? And that's one of those family stories for me, man. It's like, man, you done filled the car up with diesel. And it was not a diesel, obviously, right? Okay. So you put the wrong fuel in a vehicle. You might move for a little while, but after that, it's going to shut down. And that's what we have been given. We have been, speaking of the right fuel, we have been given the right fuel for the vehicle that we are in even my current car that I have, it had a rebuilt, refurbished engine. Had to put it in. It was under warranty. A rebuilt, refurbished engine. But in there, so it's like, it still have those labeled miles on the odometer, but the engine was refurbished, rebuilt, etc. So it's like practically new at that time. So you get the rebuilt, refurbished engine. You put the right fuel in it, good fuel in it, not cheap gas in it. You put the good fuel in it, and you ready to go. Well, that's where we are with what happened with and through the Nation of Islam and Imam Mohammed, refurbished, rebuilt engine of self, right? And the fuel that's being put into the engine of our heart, mind, and soul is the fuel that was made especially for that heart, mind, and soul when it's purified. And that was so the mechanic's work was the work done by the Nation of Islam, and the finalizing, the final fixing, if you will, of it was the work done by Imam Mohammed to transition us fully from it with an understanding of it and with the preservation and the purification of ourselves. And now he sits in front of us, as he sat in front of us, teaching us how to connect pure, that freedom and that purity that we have, teaching us how to connect with the sacred language of Quran, and we say scripture because there's sacred language in mythology, there's sacred language in the Bible, and of course we know divine language in the Quran. And the Imam, just like he deciphered and decoded the information from Farad's Nation of Islam, he has, the Imam, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, the Imam has given us the eyes to be able to look at the deepest and the most ancient of wisdom of man from those sources, myth, Bible, Quran, and from the creation. This is no boast. It's no boast. It's like we have proof that this is what we have been given by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And believe it or not, the fact is that this is a part of the compensation for all that happened. Hey, if they decide to give reparations, it ain't nothing but printing up money. It's like, hey, if they do it, alhamdulillah, I don't know if that'll be good for us, if that'll be bad for us. But the reparation, somebody looking for the reparations on some other kind of order, physical, tangible, material, etc., it will not equal. It will not equal what we have received, because what we have received, man, it is so far from realizing its potential. Now, I guess I got to use my Bitcoin analogy right now. It's like, Bitcoin is like, what is it right now? Something like $61,000. $61,000, right? And so somebody is saying, oh man, it's really gone up. It's really, yeah, but that's so far from where it's going. I hardly have any time to talk about that story. I've even not talked much about it on Monday broadcast anymore, because it's just like, come on. It's like you either get with it or not. Right now, for me, it's me. It's like, but to talk about a $500,000 Bitcoin is, I'm just telling you, $500,000 Bitcoin within 5 years is kind of like, that's kind of conservative. That's conservative, right? $1 million Bitcoin, that's coming. And so and that's cheap, because this is one of those cats out of the bag kind of thing. But let me get away from that. So the point is, that's the same case with Imam Mohammed. The value, the Imam's value, is undervalued by those who are supposed to know, or those who are seen or deemed to be knowers, and seen or deemed to be those who have got the goods for the ex-Negro, you call them whatever you want to call them. Nobody has, Allahu Alam, what this process has brought. It's okay. Everybody, go wherever you want to go. Do whatever you want to do. Somebody said, basically Bitcoin is a Ponzi. Bitcoin is a flim flam. Bitcoin is tulip. Bitcoin is destined, doomed to failure. Okay. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. People were sounding the death knell of the followers of Imam Mohammed too. But so much for that. So let's move it. So the point is for us to understand that where are we now? Where are we now in this process? We're in the process, and this is what has been continuing. The Imam, that freedom, even if I was to try to put a number on it, in a more form, that I would even say, well, let's just round it up 2,000. Just leave it like that. 2,000. That's without dealing with anything else. It's like We've been free. The amount we have been free, and that was always his intention. Imam Mohammed was never aiming at having some kind of the 100th anniversary of some organization. His goal is to set us free as human beings, so you can get on the freeway. And you go, once you're on the freeway, where you going? Where go wherever you want to go. Where you going? I'm gonna go up here, and I think I'm gonna go live at such and such place. Do it. That's everything. What do you want to do? Academically, do it. What do you want to do politically? Do it. What do you want to do economically? Do it. Just do it. Okay? And that's what the Imam said. Go after what Allah has put in you to realize in the world, to bring it and put on the table for the benefit of humanity. Do it. You're an engineer, you're a doctor, you're a good father, good mother, whatever, business person, do it. And when you do it in the methodology, in the way that the Imam is, you do it as a truly free human being. I guess I just don't have any other way of putting it. So let's read this sentence. Reconnecting the purified and liberated soul to the sacred language of the scripture and the creation for building ummah. That's what the Imam gave us. And that's what those who were and are students of Imam Mohammed, man, it's like, and that I'm just one of them, inshallah. It's like you can go all over this country and you can find men and women with my attitude who said, I don't need a bunch of people around me to do what I have to do in terms of serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and serving Allah's plan. Where I am, I'll start right where I am. And I'll do at whatever size, macro and micro, that's what I'm doing. And I'm going to do that till I die. And that's what it is. And that's life. And I'm good. It's like there are thousands like me with that attitude out there. So that's the freedom. That's the freedom that we have. Now, what time is it? Oh, we got a minute. We got a minute. Let me change up a little something right here. All right. All right. Now yeah, I don't have time to in terms of the situation right here. I'm a step out here, but if you shock me, I'm gonna have to run back and shut it down. Let's see what's happening here. Let's take a comment that we have here. I'm reading it live on air. Let's see. Wisdom of Imam Mohammed. Questions from Imams at the Imams meeting, Athens, Georgia, part 21. Question. This is to Brother Imam Mohammed. Brother Imam, you were talking earlier about the blind man. There's a story about the blind man. The first thing that he saw after the mud was put on his eyes was men as trees. And then he saw men as they were. Could you give us a further clarification on that? And that's Mark 8:23. Spit to eyes. Tree is discipline. Knowledge. Yes. That was the comeback of his sight, right? I guess that's the end of it. Doesn't say read more. Yes, alhamdulillah, mashallah. Yes, I remember being present at that session. Brother James Mosley. That was from Hakeem Mayfield Rahman. Thank you. James Mosley said, I thank Allah for Wallace Warath D. Muhammad, commentaries explaining Al-Islam to all humanity. Also, Brother Imam Yahya Abdullah bin Bilal Wazir Ali in you. I think that means and you. But they are in me and I am in them. We are all one, right? A distributed cognition. right? One mind. All right. Wazi Ali and you for keeping me informed. Assalamu alaikum. Keep doing what you're doing. May Allah bless you too, my dear brother. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All right. Blog Talk, I'm gonna go ahead and give you a shot let me see. Blog Talk might be cut off by now. Let's see. How do I get back to it? Okay, wait. Yeah, I think they cut. Okay, so Blog Talk is out. That's on me. That's on me. Mashallah. All right, we'll get it together. It's just one click of the switch I didn't do the time. Okay, so that's fine. Okay. So really, we're gonna let's just go ahead and call it. Let's go ahead and call it. Now, I will just mention one thing. This going to in the spirit of note to self, right? Listen, this is a quote from the Imam. All of this is in an effort to comfortably and comprehensively see this freeway and this freedom that I'm talking about. When the Imam says go, it's like, mashallah, it's no boast, but I mean, I am me, and I'm talking to you, and I have to speak from my own experience. That is that the knowledge that the Imam, we continue to benefit from him like light from a distant star, right? We continue to get light after his body is passed. We're still getting light. So the Imam is still teaching. The Imam is still with us in the spirit of the knowledge that he has left behind, that we inherited from him. And so all the time that I spent today is sort of like undergirding and underscoring and emphasizing, and listen, you have to approach this knowledge in freedom and purity. You have to approach it in purity and freedom. And I'm saying what the Imam has given us, he has given us the truth, and that truth that's grounded in all that I've talked about. It's the ancient knowledge, the creation itself, myth, scripture, the Quran, of course. This is the treasure that has been given to us. And as I said, I listen to scholars, both Muslim and non-Muslim, who share insights, true and valuable insights. And I find that a great deal of what they say and what they're applauded for by millions in the world, Imam has said that to us in a language that we can understand, that we could understand and can understand, sometimes 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. And now it's coming as new insight and applauded understanding from others that have those credentials. And so mashallah, it's not, I'm not angry, not jealous, but I don't want you who take the time to spend time with us, I don't want you to underestimate, undervalue, and miss, like that Bitcoin, undervalue, underestimate, and miss the value that you could be enriched by putting much more trust in the language and the logic and the legacy of Imam Mohammed. You are missing if you are not elevating it with the level of sanctity that it deserves. Then you are poorer because of it. I'm saying you can be rich if you think knowledge is important. If you think understanding the wisdom of the Quran is important. If you think understanding how to solve human problems, both personally, as family, as community, and as a world, literally, if you think that's important, you're not going to find a better source, and I read broadly. It's no boast. I read broadly, I listen broadly, I study broadly, And it's like I applaud what I hear from them when I say, yeah, you got it. Why? Because the Imam says such and such and so and so. So you right. So I'm going to use you as evidence for stuff that he said. People, because your credential is more regarded. People regard your credential more than they regard his credential. That's their loss. But since you have a credential that they value, I'm going to tell everybody that Imam Mohammed said this, and if you don't believe it from him, then you should believe it from Dr. So-and-so, since that's who you trust. You believe it from so-and-so, they said, boom. But if you can go without, I'm personally, if you're like me, mashallah, Allahu alam, my value for them has much more to do with how I can use what they have said to leverage more confidence in those who may be short, still operating on that old cast mind. It's like, okay, he said, the Imam said, and maybe sooner or later you'll get to that state of mind where you can just take it straight from the Imam and just act on it, believe it, right? That's it. But you do also need language from somewhere else, because the Imam said, if you have anything worth saying, you should be able to put it in universal language. And the Quran tells us, let us come to common terms between us and you. So I'm saying a part of that process is also, we're talking about the language and the logic and the school of thought from Imam Mohammed. That is, okay, if you can't put it in, if they won't take it in your language, then put it in their language, period. But you said it, but since you're speaking to them and that's the language they speak, then you speak it to them in their language. But you're not speaking it because that's your language. You're speaking it to them because you're talking to somebody who speaks that language. For you, if you were speaking a language, you would be speaking to someone who shares your language. And so they can go straight across. There's no interpretation needed. But for others, then find what the Imam has said, because the truth is universal. Find what Imam Mohammed said, as was said by others. As long as the meaning and the objective is the same, then tell it to them in a language that you know they understand. And that's keeping with Imam Muhammad's process. All right, so that's going to be it for today. I thank you so much for your time, your attention, your patience. And that's going to be it for today. Allah's peace be on you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.